The final battle has begun, a desperate siege on the Demon King's palace. Hordes of nightmarish beasts pour from the darkness, a tide of pure evil. The front lines are crumbling, their hope resting on a single hero inside. For an entire day, the hero has fought alone within the fortress walls. And deep within the spire, the final confrontation is reaching its climax. One of the hero's companions lies defeated, her strength completely spent. But even on the brink of collapse, her will to fight refuses to die. She looks on as her comrade makes his last stand before the throne. The Demon King mocks the hero, Ash, savoring his apparent victory. But our boy Ash rises one last time to face Demon King Moriarty. Demon King Moriarty grins, ready to end this fight once and for all. Ash stares back, his resolve captured in the artist's final strokes. Because this grand finale is a story, drawn by a man named Shui Yingshui, and unfortunately for our creator, he's just had the worst day of his life. His boss brutally fires him for the Manhwa's failing performance. Left alone in the dark, he vows to create a masterpiece they'll never forget. He pours all his frustration and passion into this one final chapter. Outside, a violent storm rages, matching the tempest in his heart. And it seems the heavens themselves have decided to weigh in on his art. The unnatural energy courses through the room, crackling in the lights above. Suddenly, the power cuts out, leaving him completely in the dark. Defeated, he believes even the heavens are conspiring against him. But then, his drawing tablet flares to life, bathing the desk in light. Our boy can only stare, completely stunned by what he's seeing. He stands, drawn to the impossible light source on his desk. As he reaches out, he wonders how this is even possible. The tablet reacts to his touch, unleashing a torrent of purple energy. The energy violently pulls him in, his screams lost in the vortex. He cries out for help, but there's no one there to hear him. And from the outside, a single blinding flash marks the event. And just like that, the room is empty, his tablet the only evidence of the event. The energy converges into a single point of light, then vanishes into darkness. He's pulled into a cosmic void, where a system message welcomes him to his own story. Before he can process it, he watches in horror as his own hands begin to glow. The energy consumes him completely, a searing pain that feels like being burned alive. His features are lost in the blaze, his screams echoing in the empty void. With a final, blinding flash, the system cheerfully announces the transfer is complete. His journey begins apparently as a human fireball falling from the sky. As he plummets, he sees it, the Pante continent, the world he created. And he's about to make a grand entrance right into a war zone he himself drew. On the ground, a lone soldier cries out, pointing to the heavens. They watch as a blazing meteor hurtles toward the Demon King's fortress, and inside that meteor, a man's silent scream echoes as he plummets. He makes impact with a cataclysmic explosion of light and energy. The Demon King's spire, once a symbol of power, now crumbles to ruin. As the dust begins to settle, a lone figure rises from the debris. Our creator, Shui Yingshui, sits up, wondering if this is just a bad dream. He can't believe it, rationalizing that he must be dreaming of his own story. But his moment of self-reflection is cut short by an approaching warrior. He comes face to face with Ash, the very hero he created just moments ago. He finally realizes he's not just in his story, he's a character in it. The sense of dread is palpable, the scene all too real for a dream. Across the rubble, Demon King Moriarty tightens his grip on his cursed blade. He dismisses the newcomer as just another insect to be crushed. But Shui Yingshu is snapped out of his stupor by the hero's companion, Tia. She screams at him to get out of the way, oblivious to his fanboy moment. And then it hits him. This is the exact scene he was drawing. His moment of clarity is cut short as the Demon King makes his move. Moriarty lunges forward, a blur of purple energy and murderous intent. Our boy can only scream, trying to tell the villain he's his creator. But the Demon King's attack is already in motion, his step shattering the ground. Just as the blow is about to land, a flash of red armor intercepts the path. Shui Yingshu can only watch in horror as his hero shields him from the attack. Ash takes the full, devastating force of the Demon King's cursed blade. Tia screams his name, her voice filled with anguish and disbelief. The hero is sent flying, the blow far too powerful for him to withstand. Moriarty stands over his fallen foe, a monument to overwhelming power. They rush to Ash's side, but the damage is already done. The hero is fading. Sui Yingshu demands to know why, his own script now completely derailed. But Ash has no answer. His body simply moved on its own to protect a life. In his final moments, Ash sees the man he was somehow destined to save. He entrusts the world to him before his eyes close for the very last time. Shu Yingshu can only stare, the name of his hero caught in his throat. But his shock is interrupted by a flood of urgent system warnings. The system informs him that the hero's death has tanked the story's ratings. A critical failure which means this entire world is about to be cancelled. The sky cracks and the ground shatters as reality itself begins to unravel. As Tia grieves, a chilling voice offers some truly terrible comfort. Moriarty declares their deaths a worthy contribution to his inevitable rule. But Tia's spirit is not broken, and she spits defiance at the Demon King. Moriarty scoffs at her words, recalling how others once called him unworthy. Shu Yingshu panics, realizing this is a terrible time for heroic last words. With the hero gone, Moriarty declares his victory is already absolute. But Tia refuses to surrender, planting her sword as a symbol of defiance. She unleashes her own power, vowing that her kingdom will never fall. The Demon King is utterly unimpressed, dismissing her as a mere hindrance. In a flash of movement, he swats her aside like an insignificant fly. She's sent crashing into a wall, the impact shattering the stone around her. Her strength gives out, and she collapses onto the cold, unforgiving floor. Moriarty then lays out his evil plan, because villains just love to monologue. With the heroes defeated, Moriarty turns his attention to the last man standing. But Shu Yingshu is frozen in place, his body paralyzed by pure terror. He flashes back to his mundane life, a world away from this kind of danger. He questions his fear, trying to grasp that this is his own creation. But his creation doesn't care, raising his cursed sword for the final blow. Our boy can only scream, throwing up an arm in a futile, instinctual defense. He braces for an impact that will surely tear him apart. But through the searing pain, a flicker of confusion crosses his face. He looks up in disbelief. Somehow he managed to dodge the attack. A shattered piece of his gauntlet shows just how close a call that was. He lets out a raw, terrified scream, the reality of his situation crashing down. Moriarty grabs him, mocking his luck as Shu Yingshu realizes this pain is all too real. From the sidelines, Tia pleads for his finally run out. As the blade shatters into pieces, his desperation boils over into terror. He laments his pathetic life, a failure in the real world and now a victim in his own. He remembers who he is, not a hero, not a soldier, just a guy with a drawing tablet. And with a final, desperate scream, he declares his true authority over them all. His words seem to unleash a cataclysmic burst of raw, untamed power. The Demon King is sent flying back, his final blow completely missing its mark. Shu Yingshu's eyes widen in sheer, unadulterated shock. He stares at his hands, unable to comprehend how he's still alive. But then he sees it. Moriarty's body is beginning to fade away. The Demon King's cursed blade dissolves into nothingness in his grasp. Moriarty demands to know what's happening, refusing to believe he's a creation. He screams in denial, insisting this kind of power is impossible in his world. And with a final cry of disbelief, the Demon King is erased from existence. Our boy can only stare, having just accidentally deleted his own final boss. But his victory is cut short by Tia's scream as the world shatters around them. Tia cries out in denial as her body begins to dissolve into particles of light. With tears streaming down her face, she whispers a final, desperate plea for help. Shu Yingshu can only scream her name, watching the scene unfold in absolute horror. He reaches out, a futile gesture against the complete collapse of reality itself. On his knees, he demands an answer for the chaos consuming his world. He then sees the body of his hero, Ash, also fading into nothingness. In moments, the hero is gone, leaving only an empty space on the cold stone. The entire Demon King's fortress crumbles, being erased from existence piece by piece. A system message appears before him, offering a very unhelpful explanation. Apparently, his creator god's speech tanked the ratings, triggering a full system wipe. As the world collapses, Shu Yingshu demands to know how he's supposed to evacuate. In response, the system presents him with a single glowing button, Ctrl+Q. He immediately recognizes the command as the shortcut to quit his drawing program. Could this be it? His one chance to leave this world and return to his own? With no other options, he reaches out and presses the ethereal key. But to his dismay, absolutely nothing happens. The escape plan is a dud. The system runs a diagnostic, revealing a rather significant problem with his exit strategy. The horrifying truth dawns on him. He died before he was ever transported here. As he processes this, his own body begins to dissolve into particles of light. He's not just a visitor, he's part of the story, and the story is being deleted. The horrifying truth sinks in. He's trapped in a dying world. He screams into the void, questioning what comes after his own deletion. The system helpfully clarifies his fate in about a dozen different languages. He slams his fist into the crumbling ground, begging for a way to stop the end. But the system offers one last desperate option, the universal undo command. He processes the impossible offer, a chance to rewrite not just the story but his own destiny. The offer is simple yet monumental, a chance to rewrite fate itself. Still reeling, he asks the system to clarify this insane proposal. The system gives him a deadline, 3 minutes before his soul is permanently deleted. The solution is a full reboot, sending him back to 2022 to redraw the story from scratch. He realizes that by redrawing his story, he can literally change the past. A fire lights in his eyes as he grasps the true potential of this offer. His mind races back to the humiliation of being fired over the Manhwa's failure, and that firing led directly to the storm, the power surge, and his own death. The system confirms his theory. A better story means he can come back from the dead. The system offers an escape hatch, but with some terrifying fine print attached. A simple truth hangs in the air. This will be anything but easy. Our boy asks the million-dollar question, how does he even see the ratings in here? The answer is both simple and daunting. He must see the story to its end. And so the ultimate choice is presented, to reset everything and try again. With his very existence on the line, Shui Yingshui makes his choice. But the system reveals a catch. He only gets 3 resets, powered by his readers' likes. A final countdown begins, with only 5 seconds left before total annihilation. He reaches for the button, giving a silent thank you to the fans who gave him this chance. The clock ticks down, the reset command glowing like a desperate prayer. With 1 second left, his eyes burn with a desperate newfound purpose. He presses the button and the universe holds its breath. System messages confirm the reboot. The world is restored and his ratings are reset. A loading screen appears, signaling the start of his second chance. The progress bar fills, preparing to drop him back into the world he must now save. The system confirms the reboot is complete, loading him into his new reality. The reset is successful, but the system seems to be glitching, flashing the hero's name. He's jolted awake by a voice calling him Akshu, his own name in a strange place. A flash of a violent memory hits him, a scene he might have drawn himself. He looks down in horror to find himself in chains, a prisoner. An old man expresses his relief, worried about what the slave owner might do. He recognizes the man as Uncle Ben, a minor character from his own story. He's in the magic ore mines, living out the first chapter as a slave, just like Ash. His moment of clarity is cut short by the slave owner, who clearly loves purple. Uncle Ben tries to explain the situation, but Richie is not in a listening mood. Richie feigns understanding, a cruel smile playing on his lips. But his patience is a lie, and he lashes out with a chain and a blur of motion. Uncle Ben is sent crashing to the ground, the guards watching without a flicker of emotion. The slave owner mockingly notes that now there's a legitimate reason to be unconscious. Xu Yingshu can only cry out in horror, watching his own story turn against him. Richie then turns his cold gaze on our boy, delivering their new punishment. He gives them an ultimatum: double the ore or lose their hands to the beasts outside. With no choice, Shui Yingshui agrees, realizing his survival is far from guaranteed. He's handed a pickaxe, his new reality setting in with the cold weight of the tool. And so he begins his work, lamenting the irony of being enslaved by his own creation. He takes a bite of stale bread, his first meal as a slave in his own world. Uncle Ben apologizes for getting him in trouble, but Xue Yingshui tells the old man to rest. He quickly realizes his artist's body is completely unsuited for this kind of work. Pushing through the pain, he asks the one question that matters: where is Ash? To his utter confusion, Uncle Ben has never even heard of the name. Xue Yingshu is floored. The man who was supposed to raise the hero doesn't know he exists. A system message delivers the horrifying truth. Ash has been completely erased from the story. In his place, the system has designated a new protagonist, Xue Yingshui himself. His mind reels, the world glitching around him as he processes this impossible truth. He then realizes he's trapped, revealing his identity as the creator would destroy this world all over again. Uncle Ben watches on, worried that the boy has completely lost his mind. But Xue Yingshui is talking to the system, a prompt only he can see. The system responds, claiming it can not only hear but also see his voice. He asks if it's displaying his words in a literal Manhwa dialogue box. The system confirms, and our boy realizes just how meta this nightmare is. Deciding to test his new role, He tries to activate his protagonist powers. The magic ore around him begins to crackle with an unstable energy. Suddenly, the crystals erupt in a blinding explosion of raw power. Uncle Ben can only stare in shock, his day getting weirder by the second. Xue Yingshu stands in the aftermath, stunned by his own latent potential. He recognizes this place, the burrow where Ash was meant to awaken his power. But he realizes his own actions have altered the timeline, triggering the event early. As if on cue, the system chimes in with a friendly neighborhood warning. It confirms that every choice he makes will directly impact the story's ratings. He understands the stakes. As the new protagonist, this first chapter is critical. He knows he has to make this opening far more exciting than the original script, so he tells Uncle Ben he's going to explore, asking the old man to cover for him. Uncle Ben panics, begging him not to do anything reckless in their situation. But Xue Yingshui is resolute, promising that if he doesn't return, he's already dead. But if he succeeds, he vows they will never have to mine again. Uncle Ben can only call him crazy, terrified by his sudden resolve. But Xue Yingshu doesn't hesitate, launching himself into the chasm. He plummets into the darkness, leaving a stunned Uncle Ben behind. The system reminds him of the stakes: raise the ratings or face death. But our boy isn't scared. He's absolutely thrilled by the challenge. Meanwhile, in a dark void, a figure in familiar armor floats lifelessly. It's Ash, the hero who was erased, his body adrift in nothingness. But then a flicker of consciousness returns as he begins to stir. Back in the mines, Xue Yingshui descends into a forbidden crystal-filled cavern. He peers into a spiraling tunnel drawn toward a mysterious light deep within. He tumbles through the spiraling abyss, a vortex of purple light and raw energy. His fall is suddenly broken by a strange, gelatinous substance that envelops him completely. He realizes he's been caught by the very slime that was meant to save Ash in the original story. The slime then begins to carry him deeper into the crystal-lined caverns below. After a short and frankly disgusting journey, the creature spits him out onto the cave floor. He looks over and spots his pickaxe, which somehow made the trip down with him. He deduces it must have been knocked into the chasm during the earlier explosion. Looking around, he confirms his suspicions about this place just as he wrote it. This cavern is filled with magic ore, a key resource for powering magical technology. It's the equivalent of oil in his old world, the fuel that runs everything from ships to cities. It's also the basis for magic, currency, and a symbol of noble power. And in just 1 month, Demon King Moriarty will return to claim this world. But for now, Xue Yingshui is just a guy with a sore back in a very shiny cave. Unfortunately for him, he's not the only one down here in the dark. He recognizes them instantly. This is exactly how the story is supposed to go. The scavengers, the first real threat of the story, lunge to attack. They crash down with enough force to shatter stone, barely missing their target. He remembers writing this scene. Ash was supposed to kill them with his bare hands. But our boy is a comic artist, not a hero, and he knows this fight is a death sentence. So he makes the only logical choice to run for his life. The beast is on him in an instant, its claws tearing through the air. He's not quite fast enough, and the monster's attack rips across his back. The sheer force of the blow sends him tumbling across the cavern floor. He grits his teeth in frustration, the pain a harsh reminder of his weakness. He realizes his mistake. These creatures are far faster than he remembered writing them. The pack closes in, their glowing eyes promising a very, very gruesome end. But even cornered, a spark of defiance ignites in his gaze. He grabs his pickaxe, turning a simple tool into a desperate weapon. The beasts recoil, their predatory instincts sensing a sudden shift in the air. Because our boy knows something they don't. Every monster has a weakness. He lets out a desperate roar, charging headfirst into the pack of monsters. The beast lunges, its only thought to tear him limb from limb. He ducks and weaves, a frantic dance between razor-sharp claws. But his fear gives way to a cold, calculating glare. The creatures suddenly hesitate, their feral instincts screaming that something is wrong. In a flash, the cavern falls silent, the chaos vanishing as quickly as it began. Xue Yingshu stands alone, the sole survivor of the brutal encounter. He pants, catching his breath, recalling the fatal flaw he wrote into their design. An insatiable hunger so powerful, they would choke themselves to death for a single bite. And his quick thinking is immediately rewarded by a familiar system prompt. The system rewards him with a character sheet, and he's thrilled to finally get his hands on some stat points. But his excitement dies when he sees his strength stat is literally -1. Even the system seems embarrassed, flagging his pathetic stats as a low-end build. But then, a flurry of messages appear as the system undergoes a forced high-speed upgrade. The new interface is sleek, prompting him to use voice commands to allocate his points. He realizes this system is far more advanced than the one he wrote for Ash. Without hesitation, he dumps 4 of his 9 points directly into his strength. The effect is immediate. The heavy pickaxe now feels as light as a pen in his grip. He follows up by pouring another 4 points into agility, preparing for a rematch. With his newfound speed, he's confident the scavengers won't be able to touch him. He uses his last point to invest in mana, a crucial stat for the future. The single point awakens his magic potential, taking him from 0 to hero. With his stats boosted, he activates the system's backpack to start mining. He gets to work, ready to strip this cavern of every last crystal. With his newfound strength, he unleashes a whirlwind of strikes on the ore. The system's auto-collect feature kicks in, storing tons of ore in seconds. After a furious bout of mining, he finally takes a moment to catch his breath. He's gathered 25 tons of ore, far more than his original hero ever did. A small, confident smirk plays on his lips. He's already rewriting the script. But he realizes the light he was following wasn't from the ore he just mined. He follows the light deeper, only to find his path blocked by a strange, shimmering barrier. A system prompt reveals the barrier's origin, himself, from back in the real world. He doesn't remember drawing this, but as the creator, he has the authority to simply will it away. The enchantment shatters, opening a path into the darkness beyond. He steps through, finding only an empty, unremarkable cavern on the other side. But a sudden, chilling presence makes the hair on his neck stand up. From the shadows emerges a colossal beast, a nightmare of claws and fangs. Shuo Yingshu recognizes it as the Underworld King, a boss he scrapped because it was too overpowered. He learns a terrible lesson. In this world, the recycle bin is not your friend. And just to make his day worse, the system issues him a brand new, impossible quest. He stares up at the beast, screaming that this thing was a mistake, an enemy he never meant to be fought. But the system warns him that backing down now will destroy the story's ratings, leaving him with only one choice. The Underworld King lets out a deafening roar, its eyes burning with raw, destructive power. It lunges with impossible speed, the shockwave alone sending Shui Yingshui hurtling through the air. As the beast prepares to strike, our boy looks up from the ground, his mind racing. And in that moment of terror, a memory sparks, a forgotten detail from his past life. He flashes back to his desk, admiring the very monster that's now trying to kill him. He remembers drawing it, meticulously crafting a creature that was both powerful and agile. And he remembers its ultimate weapon, a high-energy beam fired from the horn on its head. A single profound thought echoes in his mind. He really, really hates his past self right now. The beast's horn glows with a terrifying crimson light. It unleashes a cataclysmic blast of pure destructive energy. The entire cavern is instantly superheated, the rock itself beginning to melt. In the aftermath, the Underworld King stands amidst a sea of fire. The ground is a wasteland of cracked stone and smoldering embers. But somehow Shui Yingshui is still standing, gasping for air in the inferno. The beast looms over him, its glowing eyes filled with murderous intent. In a flash, its colossal hand scoops him up from the scorched earth. The monster holds him close, inspecting its prey with a cruel curiosity. He screams as the creature's grip tightens, a very hands-on approach to villainy. The pressure is immense, and he can feel his own bones starting to break. He realizes the beast is enjoying this, a cruel revenge for being abandoned by its creator. Overwhelmed by pain and fear, he can only scream as his life flashes before his eyes. In a moment of pure desperation, he begs the system for another reset. But the system denies his request. Turns out even cosmic do-overs have a paywall. The monster's massive hand descends, ready to snuff him out like a candle. He watches in horror as the colossal fingers close in, promising a truly gruesome end. He laments his weakness, a hero with no gear and no allies to call upon. But just as he gives up hope, a system prompt for his inventory appears. He remembers the 25 tons of magic ore he mined, a resource he can still use. With a desperate roar, he commands the system to weaponize his entire inventory. The system responds, and a single crystal appears before the colossal beast. A system message confirms the command as tons of ore pour from his inventory. The Underworld King is suddenly buried under a cataclysmic storm of magic crystals. The barrage knocks Shui Yingshui free, but sends him plummeting into the abyss. He realizes his brilliant plan didn't quite account for the whole falling to his death part. With no slime to catch him, he focuses his meager agility for a desperate landing. He crashes onto a massive crystal, the impact shattering it into 1,000 pieces. Using his pickaxe, he swings through the chaos, turning the cavern into his playground. The system confirms the transfer is complete, leaving him atop a mountain of raw power. He looks up, hoping his plan worked, but the system remains ominously silent. From the rubble, the Underworld King erupts, more enraged than ever before. The horrifying truth sinks in. He's just made a very powerful enemy very, very angry. The beast's eyes burn with a furious hatred, a promise of a painful end. Meanwhile, back in the mines, a far more human kind of monster is at work. Uncle Ben is bound to a post, facing the cruel wrath of the slave owner, Richie. Richie offers a twisted mercy, reveals Yue Yingshui's location for a quick death. But the old man's resolve is firm. He can't betray the boy's only way back. With a final act of defiance, he spits in the face of his captor. The slave owner's patience finally snaps, his calm demeanor hiding a simmering rage. Richie places a hand on the old man's chest, his intentions anything but kind. He unleashes a torrent of purple lightning, a brutal interrogation tactic. The agony is too much, and Uncle Ben finally breaks, screaming that he'll talk. With a cruel smirk, the slave owner leans in, demanding he spill the details. But with his last breath, Uncle Ben delivers a truly devastating final blow, a harsh critique of his captor's hair. The insult hits its mark, and Richie's face contorts into a mask of pure fury. He channels all his rage into a single glowing fist, ready to end the old man's life. The blow descends, a blur of purple energy and unrestrained hatred. In his eyes, there is no mercy, only the cold promise of death. Uncle Ben can only watch, a final unspoken word on his lips as the end arrives. But the killing blow never lands, as Yue Yinghui steps in at the last possible second. Richie looks on, mocking the boy for walking right back into his own execution. He reminds Yue Yingshui of the punishment for his escape, a gruesome end for them both. But our boy isn't scared. He's just remembering how much his readers hated this guy. He recalls the comments calling Richie cringy, and now he's starting to see why. Yingshu looks down at his bonds, admitting the light show was a little startling. Richie is completely dumbfounded, unable to believe his ultimate move has failed. Our boy realizes he might have underestimated his own strength after that boss fight. He recalls the terrifying power of the Underworld King he just defeated. And with a surge of newfound power, he shatters the magical chains with his bare hands. He remembers the desperation, having used every last crystal to survive. But in that moment of hopelessness, a new idea began to form. The Underworld King charged, ready to finish him off for good. Its fist crashed down with enough force to shatter the entire cavern. Zui Yingxu was sent flying, a helpless rag doll in the shockwave. He knew he was out of tricks, but wondered if he was overlooking his own potential. The system, ever so helpful, offers to show him his stats at the worst possible time. But as he looks at the screen, a dangerous plan begins to take shape. With the beast looming over him, he finds the key to his survival in the numbers. And with a final desperate gamble, he charges headfirst into the jaws of death. He ran straight up the monster's arm, a tiny figure against a mountain of rage. He recalls his stat allocation, specifically that single crucial point in magic. In his world, magic only requires two things: power and an incantation. And as the author, he conveniently knows every single incantation by heart. He remembers a specific spell, one that only requires a single point of magic: ignition. The beast began to gather its power, preparing to unleash another devastating attack. Its horn crackled with energy, the same beam that nearly vaporized him before. But Shui Yingshu had already made his move, planting his pickaxe as an anchor. From his new vantage point, he readies his final desperate gambit. With a defiant roar, he leaps toward the beast, ready to end this fight one way or another. He utters the incantation, channeling his single point of magic into a crystal. Here, the single crystal lands, triggering a chain reaction among the tons of ore below. His plan is simple, insane, and incredibly wasteful. Ignite all 25 tons at once. The cavern erupts in a cataclysmic explosion of pure, unrefined power. The Underworld King is completely engulfed in the blast, its roar lost in the inferno. And just like that, the system confirms the impossible. Quest complete. Back in the present, he realizes he's already far surpassed his original hero. With his newfound power, he knows a small-time villain like Richie is no longer a threat. He moves in a blur of motion, his eyes glowing with newfound power. Before Richie can even react, Sui Yingsui grabs his hand and snaps it backward. The slave owner can only scream in agony, his threats lost in the pain. But his rage is cut short by a fist flying directly at his face. The blow connects with devastating force, sending the villain flying. Richie slams into the far wall, the impact shattering the stone around him. He tells the villain to stop monologuing, it's bad for the ratings, you know. Uncle Ben can only stare, completely stunned by the one-sided beatdown. He can't believe the boy just took down the slave owner and all his guards. But as the dust settles, a strange light begins to glow from Xue Yingshui's chest. He looks down, realizing the light is coming from the inside are the slave contracts, the source of Richie's power over them all. Our boy just smirks, claiming it was a lucky guess because I'm the author is a bit on the nose. He tells Richie he should be grateful. The original script was a lot more painful. With a torch in hand, he prepares to rewrite their future in a blaze of glory. He sets the contracts ablaze, turning their bonds a seal will break in just 1 month. Knowing he can't just wait for the end, he decides to assess his new abilities. The system responds, pulling up his character sheet for the first time since the fight. He sees the 50 points he earned from the boss fight, with 20 still left to allocate, but he feels like he's missing a crucial piece of the puzzle. Then he notices something new, a page-turning function on his status screen. Curious, he commands the system to turn to the next page. The system reveals a comic data sheet, and he's shocked to see all his suffering only covered 2 chapters. The system confirms his ratings soared after defeating a boss the original hero couldn't handle. He smirks, realizing his discarded drafts are the very things making this story a success. The system then presents him with an author skill list, a tree of locked abilities powered by reader engagement. He realizes the exit and reset commands are just the first support is the key to his entire plan. He remembers that early game Tia is a far cry from her final form, and winning her over won't be easy. But he's not Ash. With his author skills and boss rewards, he's playing with a stacked deck. He forms a new audacious plan, to kill the Demon King before he's even unsealed. He wonders what happens to a story without a final boss, a smirk on his face. Meanwhile, at the Palace of the Kingdom of Winds, 3 royals request an audience. They are granted entry, walking the long hall toward the throne. King Altai Gauthier asks which of them will attend the upcoming enlistment ceremony. The eldest, Prince Belos, declines, citing his duty to lead troops against devils. The younger brother, Prince Belkodi, also has plans, passing the buck to his sister. Tia erupts in fury, telling her little brother to keep his opinions to himself. She steps forward, ready to address the king directly. And with a defiant glare, Princess Tia flatly refuses to attend. The story reminds us that in 1 month, Moriarty's seal will break, unleashing war. Across the land, demons are already on the move, a tide of violence the kingdom calls a disaster. In response, the King of Winds prepares his nation for the coming storm. He orders a nationwide recruitment, and Xue Yingshui joins the ranks, seeing his chance. The new recruits gather at the docks, ready to be shipped off to face this new threat. A man named Fress addresses them, calling this disaster an opportunity for glory. He tells the low-born soldiers they should be grateful for this chance to die for their betters. But Xue Yingshui knows this man's true nature from his own script, a cruel and petty officer. He decides to flip the script, planning to take Fress down and catch Princess Tia's eye. The general issues his final, chilling order, board the ships and prepare for death. The recruits raise their fists, their morale soaring despite the grim speech. A countdown blares from a loudspeaker, signaling the airship's imminent departure. With a massive surge of power, the magical airship lifts off from the water. It climbs steadily into the sky, a vessel of war bound for the front lines. On board, Xue Yingshu can't help but marvel at riding the very airship he once drew. Below deck, an officer gathers the new soldiers for a briefing. He explains they'll be divided into 4-man squads to maintain order. The recruits roar their approval as the ship continues its journey through the clouds. An officer holds up a recruitment file, calling out the name Xue Yingshui. Our boy steps forward, confirming his identity and sealing his fate as a soldier. The officer in charge welcomes Xue Yingshui to his squad with a less-than-friendly demeanor. Xue Yingshu agrees, his expression revealing this is all going according to plan. He realizes that by following Ash's path, the story's events are falling into place exactly as he wrote them. This gives him the perfect opportunity to control the narrative, sticking to the script when needed. The squad leader lays down his one and only rule: do what you're told and don't ask questions. But Xue Yingshu already knows their backstory. They're just a bunch of desperate mine robbers. He recalls the original plot where Ash fought these men and was framed as a traitor by Fress. Fress then executed the robbers himself before turning his blade on the disobedient hero. It was only Princess Tia's last-second intervention that saved Ash's life. Knowing this, Xue Yingshui decides on a new strategy. avoid the grunts and focus on the real target. He recalls the brutal reader feedback that doomed his original protagonist. He vows to write a better story, and the system issues a brand new quest. A confident smirk crosses his face. This is the perfect opportunity. The system, ever so helpful, gives him a 10-second time limit. His internal panic is cut short by the squad leader, demanding his attention. With the clock ticking down, he panics and blurts out a desperate plea to be their boss. The three robbers can only stare, completely baffled by his bizarre request. Realizing diplomacy has failed, he decides to solve this the old-fashioned way, with violence. He charges forward, his eyes glowing as he screams his demand to be their leader. The robbers are floored, questioning his very unique definition of begging. He unleashes a single powerful blow, sending all three robbers flying into the air. But a sudden horrifying realization dawns on him mid-punch. He completely forgot they were thousands of feet up in the sky. With only seconds to spare, he lunges and grabs the hand of the falling squad leader. He struggles to hold on, the weight of three men threatening to pull him over the edge. The robbers beg for their lives, promising him anything if he'll just save them. But Sue Yingsu has a very specific, non-negotiable demand. With 1 second left, they finally scream the word he wants to hear. "Boss!" And just like that, the system confirms his quest is complete, rewarding his unique leadership style. His victory is cut short by a ship-wide announcement. They've arrived at their destination. Apparently, a near-death experience is a great team-building exercise, as the robbers pledge their loyalty. But their celebration is cut short by the arrival of General Fress, who demands an explanation. He quickly spots the fist-shaped dent in one man's armor, a clear sign of a fight. Shu Yingxiu knows this could derail his plans, so he prepares to take the blame. But to his shock, his new underlings step forward to take the fall for him. He's completely stunned, wondering why they'd risk their lives to protect their new boss. Then he remembers a detail he wrote. The robbers are fiercely loyal to their leader. Fress twists their loyalty into a cruel punishment, sentencing them to a death match. Refusing to let his new allies die, Xue Yingshui steps in and grabs the general's arm. His grip is like iron, a silent challenge to the man in charge. Fress's eyes narrow, offering a choice of gruesome deaths for the insolent recruit. But Xue Yingshui flips the script, challenging the general to a public duel at the ceremony. His new underlings can only stare in disbelief, convinced their boss has a death wish. Fress's killing intent flares, intrigued by the idea of a public execution. A confident smirk plays on Xue Yingshui's lips. The general took the bait perfectly. The airship arrives at the capital of the Kingdom of Winds, a city in the clouds. Across the city, holographic screens light up with a message from the royal butler. He announces the start of the ceremony and the attendance of a royal family member. The crowd below begins to gossip, with some cruelly dismissing the princess as mere decoration. The destination is a colossal arena floating high above the clouds, ready for the show. Xu Yingshu knows the power gap is huge. He'll have to fight smart, not just strong. The announcer's voice booms across the arena, welcoming Princess Tia to the stage. Princess Tia addresses the crowd, rallying the new recruits against the demon threat. He looks up at the distant figure, realizing he's finally met the story's female lead. She looks out at the soldiers, genuinely grateful for their courage and sacrifice. But a flash of a painful memory reveals a deeper, more personal reason for her resolve. Her public face fades, revealing a deep reluctance to even attend this ceremony. We flash back to the throne room, where she had flatly refused to attend. But the king reminded her of her royal duty, since her brothers were busy with actual work. Trapped by her title, she had no choice but to obey her father's command. The king's command is absolute, his glowing eyes leaving no room for argument. The massive doors of the throne room slam shut, sealing her fate. In her mind, she's surrounded by whispers, a princess seen as nothing but decoration. The public adores her brothers, the warrior and the genius, the kingdom's true saviors. But all she's ever wanted is to be like them, to fight for her people. Back in the present, she reads the prepared words from her hand, a hollow performance. She finishes her speech and the crowd roars, inspired by a princess who feels like a fraud. With her duty fulfilled, she turns to leave, eager to escape the public eye. But General Fress steps forward, telling her there's one more matter to attend to. Annoyed, she looks down at the arena where her real entertainment is about to begin. Xue Yingxiu stands in the arena, his moment to capture the princess's attention finally here. Fress proposes a one-on-one duel, framing a public execution as a lesson in discipline. But Tia just laughs, seeing right through his transparent power trip and dismissing the idea. Xue Yingshu realizes his plan has hit a snag. The princess is completely uninterested. With a wave of her hand, she prepares to depart, her official duties now complete. But Xue Yingshui calls out, feigning disappointment that she'll miss the show. He then loudly speculates if she's rushing off to join her more important brothers. The words strike a nerve, and the princess's cheerful facade instantly shatters. She's stunned he knows of their secret missions, a detail no common soldier should have. Seeing he has her hooked, he presses his advantage, asking why she won't stay for the duel. Tia's composure cracks, and she orders Fress to investigate the impudent soldier. Xue Yingshu plays the humble miner, claiming he only wants to die with honor on this stage. He then twists the knife, saying it's better than being a decorative flower vase your whole life. The insult lands with surgical precision, and the princess's eyes burn with pure, unadulterated rage. Even General Fress is confused, wondering why a recruit would risk offending royalty just for a duel. He concludes the boy is either a complete idiot or far more than he appears. The general's suspicion grows, wondering if this is all a ploy to make him lower his guard. With her decision made, Tia grants his death wish, ordering the duel to begin at once. Xue Yingshu knows it worked, silently apologizing for having to hit her where it hurt the most. He reveals his true plan. Making the cautious general second-guess himself is the key to victory. The announcer's voice echoes through the massive coliseum, calling the combatants to the stage. Wei Yingxu and General Fress take their positions, a vast distance separating them. A shimmering purple barrier erupts around the stage, sealing them both inside. Fress begins to condescendingly explain the rules as if talking to a child. But Xue Yingzhu cuts him off, identifying it as a deathmatch ward. Guess he read the script. The general's eyes narrow, annoyed that this peasant is ruining his monologue. From her throne, a very irritated Princess Tia gives the order for the duel to begin. Fress looms over his opponent, a mountain of armor and pure arrogance. He closes the distance in an instant, a blur of purple energy and killing intent. Their swords clash with incredible force, the duel starting with a deafening roar of steel. Xue Yingshu strains against the general's overwhelming power, his arms screaming in protest. Fress realizes this recruit is far stronger than he let on, wondering if he was being played. The clash erupts in a massive shockwave, sending both fighters hurtling backward. They skid across the arena floor, the initial exchange ending in a surprising stalemate. The soldiers in the crowd are stunned. The boy just went toe-to-toe with a general. Across the Colosseum, the audience roars, a wave of support building for the underdog. Fress can only seethe, his pride wounded by the unexpected resistance. He glares at the crowd, furious that these nobodies would dare cheer for his opponent. But Xue Yingxue cuts through his rage, telling him he won't be leaving this stage. He declares with absolute certainty that he will be the one walking away victorious. The entire Colosseum rumbles with the force of their initial clash. But the stalemate is short-lived as Xue Yingxue is sent flying across the arena. He knows the gap in strength and experience is immense, but he refuses to give up. Fress looms over him, mocking his pathetic resistance and daring him to continue. But Xue Yingxue rises, explaining that this display only makes the general look weak. Enraged by the insult, Fress charges in for the kill, his patience completely gone. Xue Yingxu's mind races, trying to recall the details he wrote for this very character. A memory surfaces, taking him back to his life as a comic artist playing a video game. He remembers losing again and again to a specific overpowered swordsman. And in a moment of creative genius, he decided to give that character's moveset to Fress. He remembers the character's most annoying move, a long-range lightning attack. Back in the present, his every move. Spoiler alert, he can. With the general off balance, Xue Yingxue goes on the offensive, meeting him head-on. But his blade can't even scratch the general's armor. This is a battle he can't win with brute force. So he doubles down on the taunts, hoping to bait Fress into a bigger mistake. The general's patience finally snaps, his eyes burning with pure killing intent. He unleashes a devastating wave of energy, screaming for his opponent's death. The attack connects with brutal force, sending Xue Yingxue flying across the arena. He grits his teeth in agony, knowing full well he had to take that hit. But as Fress stands over him, Xue Yingxue knows his plan is finally in motion. The general mocks him, convinced he's just another arrogant fool who's met his end. Fress raises his fist, declaring his victory to the entire Colosseum. From her throne, Princess Tia uses this as a grim lesson for all who would defy the kingdom. Her words echo across the silent crowd of soldiers, a warning to all potential enemies. And across the capital, Fress's victory speech is broadcast for all to see. Fress brings his sword down with a final, furious roar, ready to end it. But on the ground, Shui Yingshui isn't defeated. He's bracing for impact. The blade crashes down, erupting in a massive explosion of purple energy. His new underlings can only watch in horror, screaming for their fallen leader. Fress stands in the smoke, already thinking about the promotion this victory will bring him. But he realizes the deathmatch barrier hasn't fallen. The fight isn't over yet. Because from the dust, a figure emerges, charging at him with impossible speed. The general turns in disbelief, his victory celebration cut brutally short. Shui Yingshu's fist glows with power, ready to deliver the punch he'd been waiting for. The blow connects, sending a shockwave of pure force across the entire arena. The force of the blow is so immense, it sends cracked spiderwebbing across the barrier. His new underlings erupt in cheers, realizing their leader is still very much alive. Shui Yingshu catches his breath, admitting to himself that last attack was a close call. Fress is completely baffled, demanding to know how a recruit's power could spike so suddenly. Our boy reveals his ace in the hole, the 20 stat points he had left over from the boss fight. In that critical moment, he dumped every last point into his strength, a classic panic buy. He then turns to the crowd, playing the part of a humble, wronged volunteer. His speech is broadcast across the capital, a plea for support against a corrupt general. The citizens, having seen him hold his own, begin to rally behind the underdog. Their cheers echo through the arena as Shui Yingshui prepares for round 2. The entire Colosseum is on its feet, their cheers for the underdog shaking the very foundations. Even Princess Tia is stunned, realizing the tide of public opinion has turned against her general. Inside the barrier, Fress seethes, unable to comprehend why the crowd would support a mere peasant. His rage boils over, his eyes glowing with a promise to slaughter not just his opponent, but everyone who defied him. He enters a berserker state, a risky gambit that doubles his power at the cost of his sanity. But this is exactly what Shui Yingshui was waiting for. The general's rage is the key to his victory. He recalls his plan from the very beginning, a calculated provocation to make Fress underestimate him. He knew the general was too cautious to accept a duel unless he was certain of an easy win. So he provoked both the general and the princess, a public insult designed to shatter Fress's composure. And with his opponent blinded by rage, Shui Yingshui knows this fight is already over. He envisions the perfect ending, the general, killed mid-boast by the very recruit he scorned. But he knows if he backs down, Fress's berserker rage will turn on the crowd. His new underlings step up, hurling insults to draw the general's fire. The taunts work perfectly, focusing the general's murderous rage on them instead. Fress takes the bait, stomping toward the edge of the arena. He charges the barrier, intending to slaughter the entire audience for their disrespect. But this triggers the deathmatch ward's self-defense mechanism, just as planned. Beams of energy erupt, trapping anyone who tries to forcibly leave the stage. With the general ensnared and helpless, Shui Yingshui declares the hunt has begun. Fress can only scream, suspended in the air, a puppet on the system's strings. With his opponent trapped, Shui Yingshui plants his feet, ready to end this. He launches himself into the air, a blade of vengeance aimed at the helpless general. With a final, determined roar, he brings his sword down for the killing blow. The strike connects in a blinding flash of light, sealing the general's fate. As Shui Yingshui lands, the general remains suspended, a monument to his own arrogance. From her throne, Princess Tia can only stare, her jaw practically on the floor. His new underlings are equally stunned, their faces a perfect picture of disbelief. The entire crowd is silent, completely captivated by the impossible upset. A voice echoes across the Colosseum, declaring the fight over and naming the victor. The silence is broken by a single cheer, as his new squad leader hails him as the strongest recruit. The chant spreads like wildfire, as the entire army hails their new champion. Even Shui Yingshu is a little surprised. Strongest recruit wasn't a title he was aiming for. The system rewards his victory with 30 attribute points and 2 new author skills, Save and Hide. But the celebration is cut short as a massive hologram of the king appears above the arena. Princess Tia is stunned. Her father's sudden appearance was definitely not on the schedule. The king acknowledges the impressive display, but admits this unprecedented event is a major headache. Shui Yingshu speaks up, asking if the king is concerned about the army's now vacant leadership position. The king explains that Fress was meant to lead the recruits to support Prince Rodz's vanguard. That vanguard is currently fighting a losing battle against a seemingly endless horde of monsters. So, in a moment of battlefield promotion, the king names Wei Yingshui the new temporary commander. But Zhuo Yingshu humbly declines, claiming a mere recruit can't command an army. His words, however, ignite a fire in Princess Tia, who steps forward to volunteer. He then endorses her, declaring she is the perfect choice to lead them to victory. The king looks down at his daughter, asking if she is truly ready for this burden. With newfound resolve, Tia accepts the challenge, vowing to prove her worth. The king agrees, officially appointing her the new commander of the volunteer army. He then gives Shui Yingshui a new mission, to serve as the princess's personal guard. Our boy can barely contain his smirk. The plot is finally going exactly as planned. As the recruitment ceremony officially comes to a close, Princess Tia confronts him, demanding to know who he really is and why he did all this. Shui Yingshu plays his part, claiming to be nothing more than a humble miner. Tia admits she doesn't trust him, but he's given her a path to the battlefield, and for that, she owes him. She walks away, promising to see him tomorrow with some advice. But he knows her better than she knows herself. After all, he wrote her character. He resolves to let her find her own strength, rather than simply handing her freedom. Later at the barracks, his new underlings are already his biggest fans. He's been outfitted with new lieutenant-class armor and an enchanted sword, a nice upgrade for our boy. The system displays his new stats, showing a total combat strength of 112. But he knows it's not enough. His plan to kill the Demon King is still a long shot. Taking command, he asks his squad to find the latest war report. The report confirms Prince Rods is in the southwest, fighting an undead skeleton army. They're facing a seemingly endless and indestructible horde of skeletons. His underling is terrified, realizing the only way to win is a slow, brutal grind. But Sui Yingshui knows the skeletons are just a distraction from the real threat. He explains the other kingdoms are really there to steal the Skeleton King's magic stone. He realizes that stone could be the key to his fight against the Demon King. With a new plan in mind, he quickly scribbles down a shopping list. He hands the list to his squad, ordering them to buy everything on it immediately. They question the strange late-night request, but he offers no explanation. A classic don't-ask-questions leadership style. Meanwhile, under a stormy sky, a legendary name is invoked as a blast of power lights up the night. On the front lines, Prince Rods cuts a path through the enemy with blinding, but Prince Rods sees the suggestion for what it is, a thinly veiled power grab. The man, General Nold of the Steam Kingdom, can only smirk at being called out. With his own power flaring, Rods challenges the general to make a move. Elsewhere, a massive army marches through a desolate valley of bones. A lone figure on horseback brings the entire column to a sudden halt. It's Princess Tia in her new role as commander, preparing her troops for the fight ahead. But her new lieutenants immediately challenge her authority, telling her to be ready. Lieutenant General Delore points out her complete lack of battlefield experience. And Lieutenant General Ella dismisses her as a weak liability, a truly inspiring first-team meeting. Tia grits her teeth, ordering them to move forward despite the blatant disrespect. But Shui Yingshu knows her true potential and resolves to protect her as she grows. The system issues a new mission: kill the Skeleton King and claim his power. He recalls the layout of Skull Valley, a 4-floor dungeon with the king at the very bottom. He knows he's not strong enough yet. He'll have to grind and gather allies for the final fight. The army arrives at the dungeon's entrance, up into the darkness, ready to face the horrors within. As Tia marches forward, she vows to prove she's more than just a decoration. But Shui Yingshui suddenly remembers a crucial detail about this dungeon's entrance. And right on cue, a lone skeleton warrior emerges from the shadows. It lets out a bone-rattling shriek, its empty sockets fixed on the intruders. The creature leaps forward, its blade aimed directly at the princess's head. But Shui Yingshu dives in at the last second, shielding her from the blow. The skeleton reassembles from the dust, vowing death to all who enter its domain. Tia is stunned, wondering how it's still alive after her brother's army passed through. Our boy explains the grim truth. These skeletons regenerate endlessly without the magic stone. Unfazed, Tia channels her power, declaring if she can't kill it, she'll just freeze it solid. She unleashes a wave of freezing energy, targeting the lone skeleton. The creature is instantly encased in a tomb of solid, glittering ice. Sui Yingshui shouts his approval, already moving in to finish the job. With a powerful swing, he prepares to shatter the frozen monster. The ice and bone explode into 1,000 glittering shards. The threat is neutralized, leaving only frozen fragments on the cavern floor. But her lieutenants just mock her, calling her the weakest princess. The insult hits its mark, and Tia's eyes blaze with unrestrained fury. Shui Yingshu panics, realizing he's about to witness some friendly fire. because Tia has just turned her freezing power on her own insubordinate officers. The two lieutenants can only stare in shock at the princess's sudden move. But she wasn't aiming for them. She was saving them from another skeleton ambush. The entire squad looks on as the frozen remains clatter to the ground. Tia glares at her officers, warning them never to underestimate her again. Xue Yingshu smirks, then prompts the two lieutenants to show some gratitude. Humbled and embarrassed, they reluctantly thank the princess for the save. Tia then turns to Xue Yingshui, admitting her own oversight and thanking him. But her suspicion returns, questioning how he knows so much about the undead. Our boy starts to sweat, realizing his author plot armor has some holes in it. Tia decides to let it go for now, ordering the troops deeper into the dungeon. The system confirms the kill, awarding a measly 1 point for their efforts. Undeterred, the small vanguard presses forward into the cavern's depths. But Lieutenant Ella quickly finds herself struggling against the endless, regenerating horde. She's nearly overwhelmed as another skeleton warrior lunges in for the kill. But Xue Yingshui intervenes, cutting the creature down and saving his insubordinate officer. Their relief is short-lived as a massive army of skeletons emerges from the darkness. He stands before the undead tide, a single soldier against an ocean of death. But he rallies the troops, reminding them that the princess's ice magic is their key to victory. With the skeletons closing in, he calls out to Tia, signaling for her to unleash her power. The princess answers, her eyes glowing as she channels a storm of freezing energy into her blade. She unleashes a devastating wave of ice magic across the cavern. The entire undead horde is frozen in an instant, a monument of glittering ice. Her soldiers can only stare, wondering how they'll ever beat the final boss. But Xue Yingshui just congratulates the princess, urging them to press forward. They venture deeper, the cavern walls twisting into a grotesque skeletal visage. Lieutenant Dolores stops at a fork in the path, asking for the commander's orders. Without a moment's hesitation, Tia confidently points them down the left path. She notes the lack of bodies, realizing her brother's immense power cleared the way. But Xue Yingshu suggests they split up, a classic and never problematic RPG trope. Tia's suspicion flares once again. This recruit is far too confident for his own good. Tia presses him, demanding to know how he has such specific, classified information. Lieutenant Delore objects, questioning why they should split up when Tia already chose a path. But to everyone's surprise, Princess Tia agrees with Xue Yingshui's plan. She decides to take Xue Yingshui down the right path, sending her lieutenants to the left. It's all part of his plan. He knew making her suspicious would make her follow him. He knows they must split up to defeat this floor's boss, the skeleton general. And so, the two of them venture alone into the dark, empty passage. He notes the eerie silence, a path completely devoid of the undead horde. Tia points out the strange, empty caves lining the walls, asking for his theory. He explains that the skeletons were once human, still retaining their original forms. He explains the caves are empty because her brother's army already cleared the path. Tia accepts his logic but concludes they've simply chosen the wrong route. But her suspicion returns, accusing him of intentionally leading them away from the fight. Xue Yingshu feigns surprise, trying to deflect her increasingly pointed questions. She calls him out on his strange behavior, noting he always seems to know what's coming. While she questions his calm demeanor, he's internally panicking, waiting for the real boss to appear. And just as she speaks, a nearby doorway begins to glow with an ominous purple light. A single bony leg steps out from the portal, heralding the arrival of a new foe. But it's just a skeleton janitor, relieved the soldiers are gone so he can finally clean. The janitor turns and the three of them share a moment of incredibly awkward silence. The skeleton janitor panics, wondering how humans managed to get here. But Xue Yingshui sees an opportunity, realizing this is the moment he was waiting for. The janitor opens a swirling purple portal, trying to make a quick escape. Xue Yingshu lunges forward, determined not to let his target get away. Princess Tia can only cry out in confusion, trying to stop his sudden attack. But he's too fast, diving headfirst into the unknown portal after the skeleton. Back at the fork, the other soldiers realize their commanders have vanished into thin air. Tia lands hard in a new cavern, completely disoriented by the sudden teleport. She looks up to see Xue Yingshui with the skeleton, her suspicion flaring once again. The skeleton pleads for his life, insisting he's just a humble janitor, not a boss fight. Xue Yingshu tries to calm the creature, explaining they won't harm a non-combatant. He offers his help, remembering this was a minor character he designed long ago. He recalls the lore he wrote. The Skeleton King enslaved commoners to serve his army. These servants use secret portals to navigate the dungeon, giving them unique access. The skeleton janitor begs them for a way out of its eternal servitude. It recounts over a century of torment, unable to die or escape the king's mark. Xue Yingzhu offers sympathy, cringing at the angsty dialogue he wrote in a past life. Princess Tia, moved by the sad tale, immediately promises to help the poor creature. But Xue Yingzhu cuts her off, offering his help in exchange for a single favor. He needs the janitor to lead him to a very specific hidden location. Meanwhile, back at the fork, a soldier is slammed into the wall with brutal force. Lieutenant Delore realizes with dawning horror that they are completely outmatched. They've stumbled right into the first floor's boss, the imposing skeleton general. The two lieutenants and their squad face the lone figure, a clear mismatch in power. But Dolor refuses to yield, stepping forward to challenge the undead commander. He charges across the cavern floor, a streak of silver against the darkness. His blade connects with the general's massive shield in a deafening clang. The impact creates a massive shockwave, but the shield remains unscratched. Instead, the force of his own attack is reflected back with incredible power. Dolor is sent flying, his confidence shattered by the general's unbreakable defense. With physical attacks useless, Dolor orders his wizard troops to step forward. The mages raise their staves, unleashing a coordinated volley of dark magic. Multiple beams of purple energy converge on the lone undead general. The magical barrage slams into the shield with overwhelming force. Dolor laughs, certain that this will be the end of the fight. But the general stands completely unscathed, proving magic is just as useless. The lieutenant racks his brain, realizing the shield seems strangely familiar. He recalls the legend of a human general who possessed an invincible shield. He realizes the Skeleton King has resurrected that very general to serve him. With no way to break the perfect defense, Dolor begins to panic, completely out of ideas. A flash of purple light echoes through the cavern as the secret portal closes. Xue Yingxue, Tia, and their new skeletal guide peer down from a hidden ledge. They've arrived just in time, positioned perfectly behind the first floor's boss. We flash back 3 minutes to Xue Yingxue explaining the situation to his companions. He reveals the skeleton general's identity and the secret of its invincible shield. Princess Tia is furious, realizing he's been withholding vital, life-saving information. He explains the shield's weakness, completely ignoring the princess's mounting rage. He then turns to the janitor, asking its name as if he didn't write the character himself. He tells the skeleton, Wally, to lead them behind the general to set up the final blow. Back in the present, Lieutenant Dolor charges forward with a desperate, furious cry. His lightning attack is completely nullified by the general's invincible shield. Dolor can only scream in frustration, his best efforts proving utterly useless. But from the ledge above, Xue Yingxue gives the signal, telling the princess it's time. Tia snaps back that she gives the orders, but unleashes her power all the same. A massive volley of ice magic rains down from above, a frozen meteor of death. The skeleton general looks up, caught completely off guard by the sudden ambush. The ice slams into the shield, freezing the legendary artifact solid in an instant. With the opening created, Xue Yingxue leaps into the fray to finish the job. He flies past the stunned general, his blade aimed at the now brittle shield. The shield, encased in ice, falls to the ground, its perfect defense finally broken. Lieutenant Ella is completely stunned, wondering where this mysterious recruit came from. Dolor realizes with dawning fury that they were just used as bait for the ambush. With the general exposed, Xue Yingxue orders the frozen soldiers to press the attack. Spurred into action, the entire vanguard charges forward to finish the fight. But the skeleton general's eyes glow, its blade now radiating a sinister green light. Xue Yingzhu freezes, a horrifying sense of familiarity washing over him. He recognizes the sword, wondering how a weapon he scrapped could possibly exist here. We flash back to his artist days, designing this very sword with a nerve-paralyzing ability. He remembers deeming the character too overpowered and removing the gem from the final draft. Guess the editor missed that note. Panicked, he screams a warning for his allies to stay back from the impossible weapon. But his warning comes too late, as the general unleashes a storm of green energy. Lieutenant Dolor cries out, the paralyzing curse of the blade taking hold. Lieutenant Ella is struck down next, her own attack cut brutally short. One by one, the vanguard soldiers are incapacitated by the impossible weapon. In seconds, the entire vanguard is neutralized, leaving the general unopposed. From the ledge above, Princess Tia can only watch in horror, calling out Zhu's name. She prepares to jump into the fray, her staff glowing with icy power. Tia steels her resolve, determined to save her fallen soldiers no matter the cost. But a bony hand suddenly grabs her wrist, stopping her from making a fatal mistake. It's Wally, the janitor, reminding her that a mage stands no chance in close combat. Wally, the janitor, panics, certain the general will kill him for leading them here. But it's Yue Yingshui's foot that pins his hand, stopping him from holding Tia back. Our boy realizes with dawning horror that he's also been paralyzed by the attack. His mind races, questioning why a weapon he specifically removed from the story now exists. He mentally screams at the system, demanding to know if resetting the plot caused this. The system's response is a big, fat unknown, leaving him helpless for a full minute. The skeleton general looms over him, raising its cursed blade for the final blow. All Sui Yingshui can do is watch, completely unable to defend himself. But a sudden blast of blue energy streaks across the cavern, aimed at the general. The undead commander turns, caught off guard by the last-second intervention. The blast of energy slams squarely into the general's armored chest, but it's Princess Tia's own magic, reflected and sent hurtling back toward her. Wally the janitor looks back, reminding her of the promise she made to free him. With a final desperate act, he charges forward into the path of the attack. He shields the princess with his own body, taking the full force of her reflected power. As he's encased in ice, he begs her to escape. Talk about a rough first day out of retirement. But with his last ounce of strength, he reaches out and touches the gem on her circlet. A surge of unknown energy flows into her, her eyes widening in shock and confusion. The transfer of power creates a massive, glowing magic crystal on the cavern floor. And as its light fills the room, Sui Yingshui feels the paralysis break, his body finally his own again. The skeleton general stands before him, now missing an arm but still very much a threat. It raises its cursed blade, the green gem glowing with paralyzing energy. The general's sword finds its mark, impaling the seemingly helpless recruit. But Sui Yingshu grits his teeth, the killing blow having absolutely no effect. Princess Tia can only scream his name, believing she's just watched him die. But our boy is completely unharmed, his expression hardening with resolve. He admits to himself that was a close call, a gamble that thankfully paid off. He reveals his new author skill, a save function that makes him invincible for 10 seconds. Talk about a convenient patch. Glowing with power, he charges forward, his brief window of invincibility now open. He screams Tia's name, signaling her to prepare for the counterattack. Tia, now radiating immense power, tells him to address her by her proper title, Commander. She unleashes a massive beam of pure ice magic, a comet of destruction aimed at their foe. The blast connects, instantly encasing the skeleton general in a tomb of solid ice. The vanguard can only stare as their seemingly invincible enemy is frozen solid. Yue Yingshu breathes a sigh of relief. The impossible fight is finally over. But his eyes shift, noticing something is wrong with the princess. He finds Tia standing over the frozen remains of Wally, lost in thought. He asks why she seems so troubled, even in the face of their victory. She reveals that in his final moments, Wally shared his story with her. He was just a man who died with his best friend and wanted nothing more than to rest in peace beside him. She explains he was ripped from his grave and forced into eternal servitude. His only wish was to return home, a final request from the skeleton who saved her life. But Sui Yingshu knows her royal magic is absolute. Wally is effectively dead, not just frozen. He decides to give her hope, stepping forward to make a seemingly impossible promise. He assures her that if he can defeat the Skeleton King, he can bring Wally back. Tia's suspicion wars with her hope. This recruit knows far too much to be dismissed. As if on cue, a massive stone gateway rumbles open, revealing the path forward. A glowing portal appears, the entrance to the dungeon's second floor. Sui Yingshu simply confirms his promise, his confidence unwavering. With her resolve restored, Princess Tia takes command, ordering her troops to the next floor. The vanguard descends into the dungeon's second floor, a long and treacherous path. Her soldiers complain about carrying the frozen skeletons, clearly missing the other duties as assigned part of their job description. But a sudden echoing sound brings the entire column to a halt. Princess Tia recognizes the sound, a flicker of familiarity in her eyes. The small band of soldiers stands alone in the vast, dark cavern. From the shadows above, a skeletal dragon swoops down with a bone-chilling shriek. It lands with a thunderous crash, its claws digging into the stone floor. The undead beast lets out a roar, its single red eye glowing with malevolent energy. The soldiers cry out in terror, their courage failing at the sight of the impossible foe. But Sui Yingshui braces himself, knowing the real test has just begun. He confirms their fears. This is the second floor's boss, the skeleton dragon. Without warning, the beast unleashes a devastating blast of blue energy. The attack rips through the vanguard, sending soldiers scattering like dust. It carves deep gouges into the cavern floor, a show of overwhelming power. The remaining soldiers can only stare in horror from the relative safety of a ledge. One of the lieutenants panics, seeing no way to possibly defeat the monster. But Xue Yingxue isn't worried about the dragon's strength. He's worried about another plot hole like the paralyzing gem showing up to ruin his day. As the dragon prepares another attack, he resolves to watch and wait. But Princess Tia steps forward, ready to defend her troops with a wall of ice. Her wall of ice shatters under the force of the dragon's breath. Lieutenant Delore rallies the mages, noting this beast has no invincible shield. The mages raise their staves in unison, preparing a coordinated assault. They unleash a massive volley of dark magic at the skeletal beast. The attack connects, erupting in a blinding flash of purple light. Delore watches with bated breath, hoping their combined power was enough. But his hope turns to horror as he sees the result of their attack. The dragon stands completely unharmed, having absorbed their magical assault. It retaliates with a sweep of its tail, shattering the cavern floor. Lieutenant Ella turns on Xue Yingxue, demanding he use one of his inexplicable methods to win. Xue Yingxue admits his wins are from knowing the characters, not some grand strategy. With no other choice, he calls on his squad to bring out the items from his shopping list. His underlings are more than ready, eager to finally use their special delivery. We flash back to the previous night, as his squad stands before the barracks vault. They question the mission, a midnight raid to steal a powerful gold magic crystal. As the vault opens, one soldier's inner thief gets a little too excited by all the gold. Their prize is a massive, glowing crystal, humming with raw magical power. Back in the present, he explains the dragon's weakness is its incredible speed. With great reluctance, they toss the priceless crystals into the chasm below. The beast reacts instantly, its red eye flaring as it lets out a furious roar. The dragon dives with impossible speed, a blur of bone and fury.
Xue Yingxue explains the classic trope. Dragons are greedy creatures who love treasure.
And this one has been imprisoned for ages, unable to build its precious hoard. The gold crystals are an irresistible lure, drawing the beast's full attention. One of his underlings unleashes a spell, their hand glowing with golden light. A concentrated beam of energy shoots from the crystal, aimed at the distracted beast. The blast connects, engulfing the dragon in a massive fiery explosion. From the heart of the blast, a single glowing horn is sent flying through the air. It lands perfectly before Xue Yingxue, just as he planned. Guess that shopping trip paid off. He grabs the horn and calls to Tia, ordering her to freeze the rest of the dragon. But Xue Yingxue realizes the path to the third floor hasn't opened. A horrifying thought dawns on him as he puts the pieces together. From the darkness, a second, far more monstrous dragon emerges. He panics, realizing this is another plot hole. There are 2 dragons on this floor. As the new beast charges its attack, he realizes they're out of gold crystals. The dragon unleashes a massive beam of pure destructive energy. The blast tears across the cavern, aimed directly at the vanguard. With no other options, he screams for everyone to run for their lives. But at the last second, a massive wall of ice intercepts the blast. The vanguard looks on as Princess Tia holds the line, her power on full display. She screams, pouring every ounce of her magic into the defensive wall. Her soldiers, once so quick to mock her, now cheer for their commander's power. Ella calls out his sudden loyalty, a classic case of battlefield conversion. But while Tia is impressive, Ella admits Xue Yingxue is the real mystery. And speaking of mysteries, our boy stands ready with the glowing dragon horn. The horn hums with energy, reacting to something in the cavern. He realizes with dawning horror what the horn's reaction means. The first dragon, the one they thought was defeated, is regenerating. He screams for Tia to freeze the bones before they're facing 2 monsters at once. But the princess snaps back that she's currently holding back a tidal wave of death. The scattered bones begin to glow, pulling themselves back together with an eerie light. In seconds, the skeletal dragon's head reforms, its empty socket staring into the dark. A malevolent red light flares in its eye. The first dragon is officially back in business. It lets out a silent shriek, diving back into the fray to join its monstrous twin. The second dragon roars in answer, and the vanguard is now caught between 2 impossible foes. Xue Yingxue stands with his remaining soldiers, the glowing horn his only potential weapon. He's completely out of ideas, his mind racing for a way out of this unwinnable fight. As the first dragon dives in for the kill, their time officially runs out. But in that final moment, a desperate last-ditch plan forms in his mind. He turns to his allies, ordering them all to hold hands, a classic team-building exercise. Lieutenant Delore immediately questions the bizarre order, demanding an explanation. Xue Yingshu screams back that their very survival depends on it. With no other options, the soldiers reluctantly link hands. The entire squad forms a human chain, their faces a mix of fear and confusion. He then turns to Princess Tia, offering his hand to complete the circle. He pleads with her, asking for her trust in this critical moment. After a moment of hesitation, Tia's expression hardens with resolve. Xue Yingshu activates his new author skill, Hide, a literal keyboard shortcut to invisibility. The first dragon swoops down, finding the cavern suddenly and completely empty. The second dragon looks on in confusion, its prey having vanished into thin air. The two skeletal dragons circle the empty cavern, searching for their vanished prey. One of the beasts lands with a heavy thud, its claws scraping against the stone. It stands directly over the invisible vanguard, completely unaware of their presence. Xue Yingshu breathes a silent sigh of relief. His impossible gambit actually worked. His soldiers are ecstatic, praising the man they were just questioning moments ago. But he quickly explains they only have 20 seconds to defeat both dragons. He whispers a new plan to the princess, who questions if it's even possible. The dragon's confusion turns to rage as they continue their fruitless search. But then, one of them spots the glowing horn of its fallen twin on the ground. It lands beside the horn, drawn in by the familiar magical signature. The invisibility drops, revealing their new trap, a massive, reflective wall of ice. Xue Yingshu confirms the plan. The dragon was fooled by its own reflection. Taking full command, Princess Tia orders her lieutenants to pin the beast down. Lieutenant Delore roars his approval, eager to follow his commander's lead. Lieutenant Ella agrees, her earlier disrespect now replaced with grim determination. Even Xue Yingshui formally acknowledges her authority, falling into formation. With her team united, Princess Tia gives the final, decisive order to fight. The enraged dragon shatters the ice mirror, its patience for parlor tricks officially gone. But Tia is ready, calling on her power to create an infinite wall of ice. The beast is instantly trapped, frozen solid in a massive tomb of glittering crystal. Lieutenant Delore celebrates, confident that one of the two dragons is finally down. But a system warning pops up. Xue Yingshui's stealth skill is now on cooldown. Our boy can only curse his luck, his best escape plan now off the table. The vanguard stands before the massive tomb of ice, their victory seemingly secured. But the ice begins to crack, the skeletal dragon shattering its prison from within. The soldiers cry out in frustration, realizing these undead monsters just don't quit. The second dragon smashes the ground, enraged by the attack on its twin. Xue Yingshu realizes they've only made the remaining beast angrier. Great, just what they needed. Undeterred, Lieutenant Delore charges forward, ready to face the monster head-on. He leaps into the air, bringing his massive weapon down on the enraged dragon. His blade phases right through the beast, shattering the ground below. Delore is stunned, wondering how his attack could have possibly missed. The dragon simply reforms behind him, its icy form solidifying once more. Lieutenant Ella can only scream his name, a desperate warning. But it's too late. The dragon's jaws clamp down, trapping the lieutenant. Delore cries out as the immense pressure threatens to crush him completely. So much for that head-on charge. The beast turns its attention back to the vanguard, its victim still in its grasp. It soars into the air, carrying the helpless lieutenant toward the cavern ceiling. The dragon opens its jaws, releasing its prey to fall to the unforgiving stone below. He hits the ground with a sickening crash, his fate sealed in an instant. Lieutenant Delore lies broken on the ground, his axe thrown from his grasp. Another soldier screams in terror, unable to comprehend the dragon's impossible speed. Xue Yingshu admits to himself that he's out of tricks. Their only advantage was surprise. But just as he's about to give up, a system window appears with a list of his points. He's stunned to see the total, a resource he never even knew he had. Meanwhile, the skeletal dragon dives in for another attack run, a blur of bone and malice. Princess Tia screams a warning, certain he's about to be killed. But Xue Yingshui just smirks, a brand new plan already clicking into place. Tia can only stare, completely baffled by his sudden confidence. You'd think she'd be used to this by now. The dragon's attack slams into the ground, sending shards of stone flying everywhere. The dragon emerges from the dust, its red eye glowing with renewed malice. Its gaze locks onto him, a promise of imminent destruction. But in a flash, Xue Yingshui is on its back, dodging the attack at the last second. He realizes his sudden burst of speed was an accident, a reflex from his new stats. He recalls all the monsters he's defeated, realizing he's been racking up points this whole time. so he dumps them all into agility, hoping it's enough to match the dragon's speed. With newfound confidence, he decides to turn this accident into an opportunity. His eyes narrow with focus. If he can't outrun it, he'll just have to tame it. A classic ride the monster strategy. He drives his blade deep into the dragon's spine, trying to gain control. The beast thrashes wildly, trying to dislodge the unexpected passenger on its back. With a furious cry, he unleashes a flurry of attacks on the skeletal beast. He moves like a blur, his blade dismantling the dragon piece by piece. His allies can only stare, wondering how he suddenly became so impossibly fast. But his own squad isn't surprised at all, cheering for their leader's power. Tia marvels at his endless bag of tricks, preparing to lend her own magic to the fight. But Shui Yingshui holds up a hand, signaling for his commander to wait. He explains the dragon can't regenerate quickly, giving him a chance to negotiate. The princess is stunned. Negotiating with a pile of bones wasn't in the royal handbook. He speaks to the shattered skull, telling the beast that it has already lost the fight. He then offers it a choice: be frozen by the princess or submit and serve him. He gives the beast a simple command: move its paw if it agrees to serve him. And just like that, the vanguard has a new ride to the third floor's entrance. Shui Yingshu offers a smug thank you to his newly tamed skeleton dragon. The once terrifying monster now stands before him, awaiting its master's orders. His allies can only stare, with Ella admitting she's officially done being surprised. He then asks to borrow the dragon's horn, promising to return it after the final fight. His hand glows with power as he absorbs the energy from the legendary artifact. But Princess Tia, now in a new set of armor, finally confronts him about his strange behavior. She demands to know why he's collecting boss items after asking for her complete trust. Shui Yingshui realizes with a grim expression that the time for secrets is over. He finally addresses the group, asking for their trust one last time. But Lieutenant Delore has had enough of the secrets, demanding to know his true motives. Shui Yingshu reveals the truth. The boss items are the only way to defeat the Skeleton King. Lieutenant Ella is skeptical, questioning if the items are truly that essential. He confirms it, explaining this is why Prince Rods is currently trapped on the final floor. The portal to the next level is a one-way ticket to a dead end without the keys. Tia realizes her brother's army walked right into it, now facing an eternity as the king's puppets. The entire dungeon, he explains, is nothing more than an elaborate, deadly trap. But his explanation only serves to enrage Lieutenant Ella, who grabs him by the collar. She accuses him of letting her comrades die by withholding this life-saving information. But Shui Yingshui calmly asks if she would have believed him 2 days ago. He explains he had to fight and earn his rank just to be taken seriously. He reminds her that power is the only language this world understands. But Princess Tia cuts them off, declaring now is not the time for infighting. With her command given, the vanguard marches into the glowing purple portal. They're consumed by the swirling energy, stepping onto the dungeon's third floor. Tia is the first to emerge, immediately hit by a wave of overwhelming heat. They find themselves on a narrow path, surrounded by a chasm of fire and lava. But a soldier's cry of alarm draws their attention to the cliffs below. An army of skeletons is crawling up from the fiery depths, ready to attack. The soldiers are immediately swarmed, struggling to hold the line against the undead climbers. But Princess Tia is already channeling an immense amount of power. She unleashes a tidal wave of ice magic down into the fiery chasm. The climbing skeletons are frozen in their tracks, their advance instantly halted. The entire horde is encased in ice and sent plummeting back into the lava below. With the path cleared, the vanguard continues across the narrow, treacherous bridge. Lieutenant Ella wonders aloud if the legendary fire god was also enslaved by the king. Shui Yingshu confirms her fears, noting this will be a true test for the Ice Princess. And right on cue, a sinister laugh echoes from the darkness ahead. A robed figure emerges, wreathed in flame, identifying Tia as the successor of the ice god. Looks like the boss just introduced himself. The fiery figure explains there are 2 ways to defeat the undead: freeze them or refine them. Shui Yingshu screams a desperate warning for Tia to watch out. The robed figure unleashes a torrent of pure flame, intent on incinerating the princess. The blast of fire tears across the narrow bridge, aimed directly at Tia. It connects in a massive explosion, engulfing the spot where she stood. Lieutenant Delore can only cry out her name, watching the fiery aftermath. As the smoke clears, he realizes with horror that the princess has vanished. He rushes to the edge of the broken path, searching for any sign of his commander. But his eyes widen in shock at what he sees rising from the depths below. A colossal golden skeletal serpent emerges, crackling with dark energy. Guess we know what refining means now. But just as all hope seems lost, Xue Yingshui and Tia arrive on their new ride. They've brought the second floor's boss with them, ready for a fight. The fiery figure seems surprised to see them, and even more surprised by their mount. He calls out the dragon, questioning its sudden change in allegiance. The dragon shrinks back, clearly intimidated by its former master. Guess loyalty isn't its strong suit. But Xue Yingshui rallies his mount, reminding it that this is the only way forward. He turns to Tia, but finds his commander completely lost in thought. He calls her name again, trying to snap her out of her sudden trance. He realizes she's remembering a past battle, the legendary duel between the gods of ice and fire. A fight where the god of fire, Sam, taunted his rival for hiding for over half a century. The ice god pleads for peace, saying their power was meant to help, not harm. But the god of fire has no patience for speeches, demanding the duel begin. Their disciples watch from the sidelines, the followers of ice cheering for their master. But the fire god's followers mock their rivals, calling the ice god a coward. They declare with absolute certainty that their master, Sam, will be the victor. A young disciple of ice glares back, her faith in her master unshaken. The two gods clash, their powers evenly matched in a storm of fire and ice. But as the battle rages, the god of fire is slowly overwhelmed and defeated. Yet at the moment of victory, the kind-hearted ice god hesitates to strike the final blow. The god of fire seizes that moment of weakness, turning the tables and killing his rival. The ice god is struck down, his kindness repaid with a fatal blow. The memory of that duel in the grand arena still haunts the princess. It was a place where only one rule mattered: the last one standing wins. In the aftermath, many of the ice god's disciples lost faith and defected, and a young Tia, once so proud, lost all of her confidence that day. Ironically, the victorious fire god later challenged the Skeleton King himself. He ventured into the canyon and was never seen again. Guess that didn't go so well for him. Back in the present, the enslaved god's attack barrels toward them. The blast connects, engulfing the dragon and its riders in a fiery explosion. But Xue Yingshui snaps her back to reality, reminding her why they're here. He tells her she's not here for bravery or benevolence or even just for her brother. He asks if the real reason she came was out of pure, unadulterated anger. He presses further, asking if she's angry at being called useless and looked down upon. Tia's eyes narrow as she reluctantly admits that he's right. Meanwhile, the fire god watches them, wondering why they're ignoring him for a therapy session. Xue Yingshui tells her to embrace that rage, to make it her strength against their enemy. She remembers the traitors and the arrogant, the very people who fuel her fury. He smiles, admitting he's just as furious as she is. The fire god has officially had enough of their little motivational speech. He unleashes another massive fireball, determined to end their conversation permanently. The fire god unleashes a massive sphere of pure, destructive flame. The attack barrels forward, a promise of total annihilation. Xue Yingshui screams at Tia, telling her to unleash her fury now. His words hit their mark, her eyes flaring with newfound resolve. Radiating icy power, Tia tells him to get out of her way. Looks like the therapy session worked. She unleashes her ultimate attack, a storm of absolute zero. The two opposing elements collide in a blinding flash of light. But the fire god scoffs, claiming even her master couldn't defeat him. Tia strains against the immense power, her own magic pushed to its limit. The fireball breaks through her defense, its power overwhelming. The fireball threatens to consume them, a sun of pure destruction. Xue Yingshui screams for their skeletal mount to get out of the way. The dragon tries to evade, but the attack is simply too fast. From the ledge below, the vanguard watches their leaders face certain doom. But at the last possible second, Xue Yingshui makes his move. He leaps from the dragon's back, charging headfirst into the inferno. He slices through the air, aiming to intercept the overwhelming attack. With a stunning display of agility, he vaults clear over the fiery blast. Guess all those agility points are paying off. He lands safely on the other side, the explosion erupting behind him. He stands before Princess Tia, ready to protect her from the next assault. The fire god scoffs, summoning a volley of fireballs to test their dodging skills. The fiery projectiles tear through the air, a storm of pure destruction. Lieutenant Dolor screams for the mages to form a defensive line. They combine their power, weaving a massive magical shield to protect the vanguard. But Dolor knows it's a temporary fix, their combined magic no match for a god. The intricate purple shield begins to crack under the overwhelming assault. Dolor's face falls as he realizes their last-ditch effort has failed. The shield shatters, and the full force of the attack slams into the vanguard. Dolor is engulfed in the inferno, his defiant roar turning into a scream of agony. Lieutenant Ella is caught in the blast as well, crying out as the flames consume her. Princess Tia is lost in the memory, blaming herself for the past repeating. A younger disciple demands to know why her master won't accept the challenge. The robed ice god asks his student why she wishes for him to fight the god of fire. She explains their rivals are calling him a coward, a slight to their honor. But he calmly points out that this is exactly the trap their enemies have set. The disciple insists she only wants to protect her master's reputation from slander. The ice god sighs, realizing that even his proudest follower has been goaded into this. She celebrates his decision, completely unaware of the consequences. Youthful enthusiasm is a dangerous thing. The scene shifts to the grand arena where the fated duel would take place. The memory ends in tragedy, with the disciple weeping over her master's empty robes. She knows her pride led him to his doom. The ice god absolves his student of blame, his final wish for her to live happily. But the young disciple is consumed by guilt, her studies forgotten. Tears of regret stream down her face, the weight of her actions crashing down. She then discovers a letter that had been hidden from her. It's a message from the god of fire, revealing the truth behind the duel. He offered the fire spirit to save her after she was injured by forbidden magic. Blackmail via healthcare, a timeless classic. The price for this generosity was a public battle, a spectacle for all to see. And the final condition, the ice god had to throw the fight and lose. She realizes her master sacrificed his life and honor just to save her. Back in the present, that guilt and rage fuel her power as she unleashes her ultimate attack. She recalls the forbidden spell backfiring, threatening to seal her in ice forever. But her master intervened, dispelling the dangerous magic at the last second. He saved her, placing a glowing artifact in her hand as she looked on in confusion. He told her to wear it, a gift to heal the damage she'd done to herself. She now understands that gift was bought with his life and his death is her fault. In the present, the fire god laughs, certain of his impending victory, but his laughter is cut short as a new power fills the cavern. Princess Tia unleashes her true strength, a storm of endless frost. The fire god recognizes her now, the reckless student who dabbled in forbidden magic. Tia's eyes glow with cold fury, confirming their shared history will make this much simpler. Xue Yingzhu realizes this is a key moment in the plot, one he needs to prepare for. The fire god watches Tia's magic gather, a familiar pattern forming in the energy. He recognizes the hand signs for the legendary spell, Endless Freeze, but he scoffs, knowing that spell alone isn't enough, wondering if she's planning something more. Tia's eyes glow with power as she unleashes her true ultimate skill, Absolute Zero. Xue Yingxu recognizes the name. This is the final, powerful spell he wrote for her character. The fire god explains this spell was created by the master of both gods, a legendary figure. We flash back to a vast library, learning this spell isn't difficult like other high-level magic. In fact, even a complete novice could learn the technique from a book. Sounds a little too good to be true. And there's the catch. Absolute Zero is a spell of self-sacrifice. The price of the spell is the caster's own soul, freezing them alongside their target. Xue Yingxu refuses to accept this outcome, desperately searching for a way to save her. He screams out a name, calling on Lieutenant Dolor to act on his command. A cloud of dust erupts as the lieutenant follows his orders without question. Dolor confirms the task is done, his expression a mix of confusion and adrenaline. The fire god is stunned, realizing the soldiers he just incinerated are somehow still standing. The entire vanguard is alive and well, leaving even Dolor to wonder how it's possible. He reluctantly admits that without Xue Yingxue, they would all be dead. A little respect goes a long way. With the path now clear, the vanguard prepares to enter the portal to the next level. But Xue Yingxu stops Dolor, his expression grim. The fight isn't over just yet. We flash back to Xue Yingxue handing Dolor a mysterious spell formation. The lieutenant is skeptical, questioning how a mere swordsman knows so much about magic. Xue Yingzhu calmly predicts their next foe, a powerful fire mage. Dolor's shock is palpable. He explains the spell will absorb fire, but they must first feign weakness to avoid suspicion. The mages would create a defensive shield, the very one we saw moments ago. Then they would allow it to shatter, pretending to be utterly defeated by the blast. Once the enemy believes he's won and lowers his guard, the hidden spell would activate, absorbing the full force of the fire magic. Dolor is left speechless, realizing this recruit has a counter for every single move. As Xue Yingxue walks off, Dolor snaps at him, clearly flustered by the kid's constant mic drop moments. The skeleton dragon, now empowered by Tia's magic, faces the fire god. With glowing eyes, Tia unleashes her final self-sacrificial spell, Absolute Zero. A massive wave of purple energy surges forward, a storm of pure ice magic. But the fire god counters with his own ultimate attack, the Hellfire Precept. The two opposing forces collide in a blinding, cataclysmic explosion. The fire god rages, questioning why they still oppose him even in his skeletal form. But Tia fires back, accusing him of causing this tragedy and shirking his responsibility. Her power surges, the spell reaching its critical, irreversible point. But Xue Yingshui screams Dolor's name, signaling the start of his counterplan. The lieutenant stands ready with the mages, awaiting the signal from the guy he just yelled at. Dolor holds up a glowing red crystal, amazed that their impossible plan actually worked. With a determined cry, he hurls the newly formed fire core across the cavern. Xue Yingchu catches it mid-air, his eyes locked on the ongoing magical duel. He moves behind Princess Tia, placing the glowing necklace around her neck. He explains this fire core will protect her from the spell's self-sacrificial curse. He tells her to focus on the fight, promising answers once the battle is won. The fire core flares to life, its power surging through the princess. The fire god roars in fury, realizing they've turned his own power against him. Tia's Absolute Zero spell, now bolstered by the fire core, pushes back against the inferno. The vanguard celebrates as the fire god's attack weakens, thanking him for his generous donation of power. But Xue Yingzhu knows this is too easy. A plot twist he wrote should be coming. The two opposing powers continue to clash, a storm of fire and Absolute Zero. The fire god can only rage as his own power is used to overwhelm him. Seeing their chance, Lieutenant Dolor rallies the vanguard for a final, decisive push. Princess Tia focuses her will, pouring every last drop of magic into her attack. But Xue Yingxue is suddenly hit with a wave of anxiety, a sense that something is wrong. He remembers the golden rule of storytelling. The heroes never get an easy win. He realizes the skeleton dragon is about to regain one of its original forgotten powers. In a last-ditch effort, the fire god calls for aid, summoning his secret weapon. A monstrous beast of pure flame erupts from the chasm, answering its master's call. Guess Little Chirpy wasn't a pet bird after all. Su Yingxiu panics, realizing another forgotten detail from his original story has just reappeared. We flash back to the fire god's youth, where he discovered and carefully hatched a mysterious egg. The creature that emerged chirped constantly, earning it the rather uninspired name Little Chirpy. But his secret pet was soon discovered by the ice god, who was the class president at the time. The fire god begged him to stay quiet, but the ice god reported him to their master anyway. So much for student solidarity. The Grand Master ordered the creature released, knowing it likely wouldn't survive on its own. But the fire god secretly used his limited free time to sneak into the woods and feed his pet. He calls out in the forest, a desperate edge to his voice as he searches. Little Chirpy appears, and we learn the fire god's guilt soon twisted into a deep hatred for the ice god. But the story hints the ice god's motives weren't as simple as just following the rules. The story reveals the ice god's actions weren't about rules but jealousy. He was the Grand Master's star pupil, the golden boy treated like a son. But this praise created a crushing pressure, a fear of making any mistake. In contrast, the carefree fire god was sent to the isolation room for his defiance. There, he secretly continued to care for his forbidden pet, Little Chirpy. The ice god felt like the one truly imprisoned, jealous of the fire god's freedom, and the fire god, feeling wronged, vowed to destroy everything his rival held dear. But the scene suddenly shifts, revealing this backstory on a phone screen. Xue Yingxiu stares in disbelief. This isn't the story he wrote at all. His editor explains that villains need tragic origins to be compelling. It's just good writing, apparently. The editor gave him a choice: delete the arc or make the ice god the victim. A younger Xue Yingxue reluctantly considered that maybe readers wanted more complexity. He knew deleting the arc would make the story boring. But he decided that was better than a story he no longer recognized. Back in the present, he screams in frustration, realizing his past choices have come back to haunt him. Meanwhile, his newly empowered skeleton dragon roars, ready to face the fiery beast. Xue Yingxiu screams for his mount to dodge the incoming assault. But the fire god is engulfed in the icy blast of Tia's Absolute Zero. The attack carves a path of destruction through the cavern floor. The god emerges from the smoke, complaining he was almost turned into a popsicle. So much for a one-hit KO. The fiery beast roars, gathering a ball of destructive energy in its maw. Zhu Yingshu realizes this is Little Chirpy's adult form, with power rivaling the Skeleton King himself. The beast unleashes its attack, a blinding beam that engulfs their skeletal mount. Xue Yingshu and Tia are sent flying, their dragon ride now an unwilling projectile. The fire god watches as his former pet is blasted across the cavern. He panics, realizing the out-of-control dragon is headed straight for him. Friendly fire is never friendly. The dragon slams into the ledge with the force of a meteor. Xue Yingshu and Tia hit the ground hard, barely surviving the crash landing. Enraged by the chaos, the fire god prepares to end this once and for all. But Princess Tia rises to meet him, her eyes glowing with the promise of absolute zero. The monstrous beast, Little Chirpy, lets out a deafening roar over the vanguard. Undeterred, Lieutenant Delore rallies the soldiers for a counterattack, but Wei Yingshu screams for them to wait, a look of pure panic on his face. He orders them all to stand down immediately. With the beast looming over them, he begs his allies not to engage. He realizes the butterfly effect is in full play. His editor's changes have altered reality. In the story he wrote, Little Chirpy was deleted to simplify the plot. This turned the fire god into a one-dimensional villain who used Tia to kill his rival. But with Little Chirpy still alive in this world, everything has changed. Guess deleting a character isn't as simple as hitting backspace. The personalities of both the fire god and the ice god are now completely different from his original script. He realizes Little Chirpy's presence means the fire god might still be redeemable. He screams at Princess Tia, desperately pleading for her to halt her attack. But she fires back in anger, insisting she's the only one powerful enough to stop him. Even the fire god is confused, wondering what game this brat is trying to play. Ignoring the god, he turns to Tia with a few serious questions, much to her confusion. He asks if her master, the ice god, ever mentioned having any regrets. She questions his timing, but he simply presses her for an honest answer. Her expression shifts as a specific painful memory comes to the surface. We flash back to a younger Tia, who admits she once secretly raised a monster as a pet. But her master discovered the secret, confiscating the creature and leaving her heartbroken. Determined to get it back, she decided to break into her master's office. But as she peered through the door, she saw something completely unexpected. The ice god was secretly feeding her confiscated pet, asking if it enjoyed the food. She burst in, accusing her master of having hypocritical double standards. Her sudden appearance and accusation left the powerful god completely stunned. In the present, the fire god laughs, intrigued by this forgotten memory. Back in the past, the ice god prepares to explain himself to his furious student. He confesses that as a student, he once reported a classmate out of pure jealousy. His actions nearly led to the death of that classmate's beloved monster pet. Racked with guilt, he began secretly protecting the creature in the wild. He even froze other monsters in the wild to keep the creature safe. The ice god admits this was his way of atoning, promising to return Tia's pet. Xue Yingshu realizes this plot twist wasn't his doing, it grew organically from the characters. The ice god was never a villain, just a flawed person who would have sought redemption anyway. Forcing a character's actions, he muses, turns a story into a puppet show. Guess his editor missed that memo. The fire god finally understands his rival was secretly protecting his pet all along. Princess Tia is stunned, realizing her master's story was about the fire god. She looks at the monstrous beast, the truth of the past finally laid bare. The fire god wonders why his rival kept this secret, knowing the truth would have ended their hatred. But Xue Yingshui steps forward, claiming the fire god already knows the answer. The fire god finally admits his rival was a complicated man, never one for direct words. Princess Tia is completely lost, asking if the battle is still actually happening. Xue Yingshu calmly states that the next move is entirely up to the fire god. With the truth revealed, the god loses all will to fight, warning them of their inevitable doom. The vanguard is baffled by this sudden ceasefire, but one soldier points out the obvious upside. After all, they would have had to face the monstrous Little Chirpy otherwise. But Tia remembers their mission, asking about the boss item they need from this floor. Xue Yingshu simply points to the fire core, explaining they've already secured it. Guess that little trick paid off in more ways than one. As if on cue, a massive black monolith rises from the ground, revealing the path forward. The fire god explains the door's color symbolizes death, urging them forward on their one-way trip. The fire god bestows the fire core upon Princess Tia, a final unexpected gift. He explains it now holds half of his original fire spirit, a flame that will never die. Tia is completely baffled, questioning this sudden act of generosity. He claims it's to repay his debt to the ice god, then dismisses them to their fate. Princess Tia and Shui Yingshui watch him go, accepting the strange truce.